All right. I think we did that backwards. Maybe not. I'm not sure. There's a countdown. We were kind of live at the same time. Either way, we are back. We took some time off, but we want to thank everyone for joining us for another episode of the Microsoft Unboxed podcast. We are episode 23, I believe. Um, we're in
two
the middle
two
of
years
summer.
2 years past the drinking age.
2 years now past the drinking age, and we will continue to get older as we keep doing these. I'm your host today, Kareem Anderson. I'm joined by.
David Allen, I promise you I'm not drunk. There is water in that bottle down there.
He says that, ladies and gentlemen, but that could be tequila, that could be vodka, who knows?
Hey,
Right.
it is Friday. It is Friday.
And he's 2 years above the drinking age, by the way, just to remind everybody. But yeah, aside from that, if you are drinking and you want to be entertained a little bit, we got some stories for you. It was a relatively quiet week in Microsoft land, but a week nonetheless, which means we got some headlines, we got some stories to cover. We're going to be covering Adobe and Affinity going at it, at least as far as pricing wars are concerned. This is the David and Goliath story I am most excited about because I don't like paying for more subscriptions. And if Affinity can figure out a way to combat that, I'm all for it. We're going to be talking about Microsoft paying the EU to get out of trouble. I didn't know that was a thing you can do, but apparently it is, and we'll get into the details about it. We also have a story about you guys finally being pushed off the plank that is legacy Outlook. Microsoft is tired of you guys using it, so it wants to move you on to something else. And I don't believe it's for security reasons either, which
No.
should have been. Microsoft is also dropping out of OpenAI's board seat. They did it last week, and Apple followed suit, I believe, this week. We're going to get into why that is probably a good move and what that means for the future, even though they are entangled in about $12 billion worth of investment. Then we're going to be talking about, we're ending the pod with gaming news. We here like to talk about gaming stuff. We talk about the Game Pass price increases, what that means for gamers, as well as Microsoft and Amazon burying the hatchet when it at least comes to gaming. Maybe not the cloud, but gaming. They've figured out a way to be amicable. And we'll get into why the Fire Stick may be the new Xbox console. With that being said, let's get you guys started. Let's get my buddy David Allen talking, and we can measure whether or not he is actually drunk. What's our first story?
Well, I believe you said the first story was going to be Adobe and Affinity here. I thought this was pretty cool, and I think there's two sides to this. Long story short, Affinity is aiming at Adobe users with a 6-month trial offer of their product. That's right, no strings attached. I want to make that clear. There was a quote by the CEO of Affinity says, "I'll just give you the brief version. More people than ever are talking about different creative software options available, and every day thousands more designers and artists, photographers take the decision to move to Affinity, joining the millions who already trust our software for their everyday professional workflow." Now, notice how that is worded. It is worded that way on purpose, and I feel like Affinity is doing this on purpose, and rightfully so, because of everything that's going on with the Adobe investigation that we talked about. It's been a couple weeks, but we talked about it on the last pod about how Adobe is kind of being a little slippery with how they're charging and allowing you to cancel. So Affinity is a little bit of a smaller company, so they say now's our time to jump in there and see how many of those angry Adobe users we can get to pull over to the Affinity ecosystem. The thing with Affinity is I have used their product. I like their products. They are competitive with the Adobe Suite. It's Photoshop and what is the Vector, um, not Lightroom,
Uh, what is it called? Hold on.
Illustrator. Illustrator.
Yes, correct.
And it's a nice little software suite. Now, if Affinity could find a way to throw a good video editor in there, that's the one thing they're missing. I think to go fully hit on with Adobe. And last time I used Affinity, they're missing some of the AI features like the Adobe Firefly. But keep in mind, Affinity is a one-time pay deal. You pay it one time, that's it. You're done. There is no subscription model. So, hey, it's worth looking into. I understand why Affinity's taking this approach. I think, 6 months free, no strings attached. If you check out our website, the download link is at the bottom of the post. I did check out the download link. You click it, you choose your download. There's no gotchas, no nothing. If you purchase during this 6 month thing and say, hey, you're going to stay along, there is a 50% discount. So they're giving you an even better opportunity there. I support this 100%. I'm glad to see the smaller company going after the market share and taking the competitive approach to go after the big guy. I'm always a fan of that. I think this is pretty good. Go out there and try and give the software a try. I think you'll enjoy it.
Yeah, I think you and I are both on the same page. I have a subscription to Adobe. It roughly comes out to about 250, almost $200 a year for it. I'd rather just pay the $300 or whatever and be done with it. At least for the next 5-6 years, however long I plan on using that particular version of it. So I'm glad to see that that Affinity's going to stick with that model. I think one of the details we have that we may have kind of missed in some of this is that I believe it was Canva and Affinity have teamed up. So you
Yep,
get
I do remember that. You're right.
yes, so you get a cloud-based version of some of the tools you could use for what would be like kind of a Photoshop-esque kind of thing. You also get some straightforward, more templated, easy to use marketing materials when you use Affinity and Canva together. This is kind of their start, a push for that. The other thing that we got going is that Affinity also has Publisher. It has a solution to Adobe's publishing app as well. The only thing, like you said, is missing is a video editor, and that's unfortunate because I don't know if there's any plans to make one. I remember, I don't know, a couple months back, I had said that it would be a great idea if Affinity and Canva and is it Black Magic? Is that the name of the company that makes DaVinci Resolve?
Yeah, Black Magic.
Could come up with a deal, come up with some kind of agreement, because I believe that would be the trifecta. As of right now, you can get DaVinci Resolve for free with super robust, powerful tools, and for I think $250 or $300, something like that, you can get the full suite of everything. And I think if those three can come together, it would at least kind of force Adobe to reevaluate either its pricing or the fact that people just want a one-time purchase. Maybe they don't get all the AI features, maybe they don't get the monthly updates or whatever, but they should have an area, an off-ramp for people who just want those specific things. And I mean, this is anecdotal, and anecdotally speaking, most of the people I see on YouTube are tossed between Final Cut and DaVinci Resolve when they do any type of reviews for devices, anything like that. They're usually saying, hey, I'd like to see how this fares when I use these things. Now, don't get me wrong, they use Adobe as a benchmark for a lot of stuff because it is the industry leader. It is never to be overlooked. And I know, there's a reason why they moved to the subscription model because it's successful. But I've seen a lot of people over the last 5 years move from Adobe back to DaVinci or further into DaVinci Resolve editing and things like that. So I think there's definitely a market hunger for this competition. But we won't belay this anymore. Let's move on to our next headline, which is, what did I say was our next one? Oh, Microsoft paying to get out of trouble. This is not a first, but definitely interesting. Microsoft will be paying 20 million euros to settle an antitrust complaint about its cloud computing practices. And for those of you who are doing the quick trends, financial translation, that's about $21 million to, I believe, the CISPE and the European members to basically say, hey, don't investigate us further about Teams. We've tried to like do everything we could. And again, we mentioned this before I went on vacation about 2 weeks ago that Microsoft was going to face an official charge. Now, we'll do a little quick flashback. I believe Slack and some other groups have gotten together to say that Microsoft's the way that it was doing its bundling of Teams was anti-competitive. The EU had threatened to kind of look into it, and Microsoft, as a response, said, "You know what? We're going to unbundle it everywhere. You know, we're going to at least, yeah, most places, I believe North America, say we're going to unbundle it. It'll be sold as its own thing. You can pair it with Office, and it'll work better when it's paired with Office versus Slack or anything like that. You know, because hey, we own both, but you know, you don't have to get either or. You know." And I believe Slack still complains, saying like, "Hey, the threat of us not being interoperable or having the same level of access to the APIs that you know they would build for their own Teams application is still anti-competitive." And so the EU said, "You know what? That does make a lot of sense. We're going to do a formal charge." And this was said 2 weeks ago, like I said, right before I left. And I think Microsoft was like, "Hey, I thought we did everything that you guys wanted. We unbundled, but you're still going to investigate us. How about we just leave this sack of money right here and you guys find it in your heart not to do so?" Specifically, in quotes, Microsoft's president, Brad Smith, said, "After working with the CISP and its European members for more than a year, I'm pleased that we've not only resolved their concerns of the past, but also worked together to define a path forward that brings even more competition to the cloud computing market in Europe and beyond." Throughout this entire investigation, Microsoft has been very friendly and acknowledging that things need to be changed and adjusted, more so than when they were a bit more hostile with the UK when it came to Activision and Blizzard. What are your thoughts on Microsoft being able to just say, you know what, we're going to pay you some money to get off our back versus you finding us money to change the way we do business?
It sets a really bad precedent at a really bad time. We have talked about it over the almost 3 years now. You and I have been doing podcasts together when all the cloud disagreements started occurring. That people were doing this, and there was a story I think you're going to talk about later where I remember, what was it, a year, 2 years ago, where Microsoft was fined in certain areas for having anti-competitive cloud versus Google, if you remember that. And if you set a precedent that a trillion-dollar company can pay some money to get out of a competitive situation, I think that's bad. That's bad all the way around, because this stuff is going to get more competitive. The cloud, I say we're halfway there, maybe 75% there. But as we continue, the cloud is going to get more competitive, because we can get into a 30-minute discussion about what the cloud is. That's not what we're here to do. But the cloud is basically the same for everybody. It's, what services does each company offer? What services does Google offer? And at what rate? What services does Azure offer? At what rate? What services does Amazon and others offer? And at what rate? Whether it be what we sit Office 365, like kind of being discussed here, whether it be Azure, business offerings or whatever, it sets a bad deal to say, okay, we can go do what we want to do, and when the EU comes after us, we'll pay them a little bit of money, just like Microsoft did, and we'll keep doing it. Because there was nothing, unless I'm missing something, there was nothing in this where Microsoft said, okay, we'll fix something. There was no admission on Microsoft's part of necessarily right or wrong. They did say some things needed to be adjusted, but there was never an admission of wrong. So, we like to talk about this being episode 23. I've heard in some places where, you get drunk, and we've talked about this a little bit. You get drunk, you get that DUI, you pay the lawyer and the DUI goes away, and that's the first thing that come to mind when I read this. I'm like, this is like people talk about getting a DUI and they pay the lawyer a certain amount of money and suddenly that DUI disappears. But
Yeah,
they go home that same night, they still take another drink and they do it again.
you're very right in your observation. Now, I will say, you're sounding more and more like Google. This is Google's Vice President Amit Zaveri saying Microsoft's playbook of paying off complaints rather than addressing the substance of their complaint hurts businesses and shouldn't fool anyone. He goes on to say many regulatory bodies have opened inquiries into Microsoft's licensing practices, and we're hopeful there will be remedies to protect the cloud market from Microsoft's anti-competitive behavior. We're exploring our options to continue to fight against Microsoft's anti-competitive licensing in order to promote choice, innovation, and the growth of the digital economy in Europe. Obviously, they aren't as pleased with the deal. Now, I would like to note that again, Microsoft did unbundle Teams, so it wasn't like Microsoft said, "You know what? We heard your complaints. Here's some money. Go away." They did unbundle it. They will continue to keep it unbundled as is. The argument going forward would have been, what level of access do competitors have to the tie-ins to Office, and would they be on par with what Teams is giving as far as access to make it a more appealing service in conjunction with Office 365? Now, that's a much harder fight to have, I think. You're going to have to prove that Teams somehow works and is better than Slack with Office, but not in a subjective sort of way. Like, I don't know what the upload speeds are or the resource requirements are for, on device things like it's going to be a lot harder for them to win that argument. So I think what the EU was doing was saying like, hey, even if we went through with this and we proved it, we would find them. I think they said, what was it, 1 or 10? It could have been 10. 10% of their annual revenue for Office 365. And I don't know what the time period would have been, however long. I guess they've been bundling it, or maybe just for a year. I'm not sure. But the amount, I don't think would have satiated the appetite for people as much as the remedy, which is, again, unbundling it and allowing people to choose Office 365 and Slack versus, all right, we're just going to do Office 365 and Teams because it's together. Now, I agree with you that Microsoft shouldn't be able to pay this off. Like, they probably should have went to court and proved it. But I think in the practical sense, this was probably the best outcome for everybody. Less court time, less lawyers getting paid. I know Google's want to fight this, but again, and probably Slack, but I don't know to what end or what they're going to try, what they plan to accomplish as an end goal to say, hey, now we feel as competitive. Because again, Microsoft owns both Office 365 and Teams. At the end of the day, that's a fact that you can't get over. And if they can sell businesses on, we own both, why not just, have them under, why not just make it cheaper for yourself to have the two? It's really hard for Slack or Google Chat or whatever to kind of weasel its way in there. I'm going to give you the last word on this, and then we'll move on to the next topic.
I'm going to agree 100%. I don't see a lot of businesses every day using Slack for their team communications and then using Outlook for email. I do see a lot of Slack and then Google Apps or Google Workspace.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I see that combo, but I rarely see, usually when take us, for example. I will be the first to admit, for what we use for Microsoft Unboxed, Microsoft 365 is expensive compared to the equal Google Workspace offer. But there's Teams like we use for our communications. We like the OneDrive integration. We like the OneNote integration here for the pod. So,
Planner.
Planner. It kind of goes back to what Microsoft wants you to do. Buy into the ecosystem, and when companies do that, the financial officers and, those folks, they want one bill. I don't want to see five bills for our communications and cloud services, because then those Microsoft isn't stupid. Those financial officers sit down and they start adding up each one. When they need to cut the budget, they start adding up each one, and then somebody stands up and says, "Well, you can do all this with Microsoft, and it'll save us $100 a month, or if you're a big company, thousands of dollars a month. Why are we not doing this?" Cha-ching! You're right back where Microsoft wants you to be.
Unfortunately. Moving on to our next headline, we'll be talking about Microsoft dropping a product. Tell us all about Outlook, or Legacy Outlook, that is.
Well, well, well. I'm a legacy Outlook user. I am that guy that buys his PC and he uses the software that is on that PC. Unfortunately, entirely too long sometimes. So, Microsoft has said it is time for you to move on to their new, they call it the new Outlook. It looks a little different. It plays a little different for us old school folks that are used to the older versions of Outlook. It is very different. That's part of the reason I still have the old Outlook.
See, you're
And
being generous. For us grumps like myself and probably the rots of the world, it's
yes,
the featureless one. It is the featureless one. Let's just say what it is. It is the one that will not have the things you're looking for if you are a hardcore or moderate user of Outlook. I'm just gonna put
that,
that out there. I
and
enjoy it.
yeah, that is
it
100% correct. The aesthetic of the new Outlook is very nice.
yes.
I will give it that. They did a fine job of merging the web interface and I'm going to use this in quotes, the local interface. It looks nice, but as the Thurrots, the Kareems of the world, the Davids of the world features, it doesn't feel like they're all there. But Microsoft doesn't care, so they have kind of set some dates here, and you're going to have to go by these dates. They started telling us in September of 2023. I remember writing this post begrudgingly back then. Well, now, starting this month, July 2024, you're going to start being pushed to the new version of Outlook, and they hope to have this done in two different phases. One in September of 2024 for the Outlook on the web, the old version if you were still using it, and October 2024 for the desktop version. Now, let's be clear. This applies, unfortunately, to everybody. So if you're an Apple user, time to move on. Android user, time to move on. Windows user, time to move on. Even your mobile apps, guess what? Time to move on. So if you don't move on, Microsoft has said, well, you're going to start losing functionality. You might even lose the ability to send and receive messages. So basically, Microsoft is forcing us to go play with the new Outlook. Now, this kind of piggybacks on the story we just talked about very well. It's not a consumer choice here. Microsoft is forcing you to do this. So, security updates, probably good reason to use the new Outlook. I'll say that. But if you're like us, we're going to begrudgingly put it down and move on to the new Outlook because Microsoft says so. Just like we're going to buy the entire Office suite for our company because Microsoft says so. Do you see a trend here?
Yeah, they use the term encouraged. They're not saying this isn't Simon Says. They're encouraging you with a knife to your back to keep walking forward. Yeah, I am in the feedback section of this app constantly because, like I said, there are
Yes,
things
yes,
that I want to see added. And again, they are slowly working on that. There are things that I've put in the feedback 6 months ago that are finally showing up. So, as much as I don't want to move forward in this aspect, I enjoy the design and stuff like that, but I need the functionality above all. I will do my best, and I would encourage you all, same way Microsoft is with a knife in your back, to offer as much feedback as you can. I know it's going to be upsetting, it's going to be time consuming, it's going to be frustrating, but this is a transition, and the best that we can do, unless you're going to, maybe move over to Gmail or Thunderbird or, another mail client, is to voice your opinion. Make your voice heard. Go to the feedback section. Be in there constantly. Often enough, someone will listen, and eventually, these features, they will have to come be on par. I mean, if they're going to start pitching this to businesses as well as their end solution, maybe this is, will be the end of all of those issues with Exchange, those security issues, because of their, moving to a cloud or whatever, and it's not, necessarily stored locally on a device or whatever. Who knows? But if this is the path forward and you are going on this path for Microsoft, just make sure that, like I said, your voice is heard, so that you're not just yelling into the void. Move on to the next story, which is Microsoft and Apple saying, you know what, we're good on being officially a part of OpenAI. We'd rather be the dark hand that no one sees, the Sith Lord or whatever they call them, Palpatine. What's going on is that I believe Microsoft has ditched its observer seat on the OpenAI board, as it's going into regulatory scrutiny and potential further congressional hearings or whatnot over AI. Apple, which was also offered an observer role, I believe, for Phil Schiller, has declined to fill that seat. So they will not be doing the same. In a letter, I believe, that was seen by Axios, Microsoft justified its decision by giving up the spot that it, basically kind of fought for during the whole kerfuffle of the coup and the ousting of Sam Altman or whatnot, by saying that it's no longer necessary. And I could appreciate that answer because they have the guy that they want in position, and he has gotten rid of any potential conflict. So if they suggest like, hey, Sam, we want you to do this, it will most likely get done, versus the way it was set up last time was they had the nonprofit portion of the board. Sam didn't control everything. They had to kind of offer suggestions, but it could all be vetoed. So they had to be in the room in order to guide where OpenAI was going to go as far as their business interests are concerned. Now they have the one guy that they can talk to, and they have a pretty good relationship with currently, to say, hey, you know what, this is the direction we're going to go in. We would like you to join us. And he's pretty much going to do that. As far as why Apple declined, we don't know. I'm going to give you a quote, and then I'll let you jump in real quick. And this is from, I believe, let me make sure I get this person right, credited. OpenAI spokesperson. As you know, we accepted the non-voting board. This is, I believe, Satya. As you know, we accepted a non-voting board observer role at a time when OpenAI was in the process of rebuilding its board. So all that hoopla I was just telling you about. The position provided insight into the board's activities without compromising its independence, and we appreciate the opportunity to serve as an observer during this period of change. Over the past 8 months, we have witnessed significant progress from the newly formed board and are confident that the company's direction. So, like I said, they aren't worried about another coup happening, and their business interests seem to be pretty secure. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I have two thoughts. One, is, when we were kids, we stayed at home, and our parents would go out the door, and the second the car would leave the driveway, oh boy, the parents are gone, let's go party. And
Yes.
sometimes the parents would forget something, and
That's the worst.
they would get to the end of the street, and they would turn around and come back, and they would find what your real plan was.
Mm-hmm.
So you better believe that just because Microsoft and Apple are no longer seats on the board in the chair with the microphone in front of them, if OpenAI was to do something, completely out of character, Microsoft and Apple, especially Microsoft with their investment, would be right back in there to help straighten things right back out until they decide that they have been paid for that investment. Then they may move on. Now, that kind of leads me to my second point. everybody seemed to need OpenAI when the AI revolution started. You know, OpenAI had the models. Microsoft started developing theirs. Apple is working on theirs, and we have talked about there would become a time where these AI partnerships would diverge, and you would have everybody would have their own model. And I think this is also a competitive move by Microsoft and Apple to get off the OpenAI board while they're working on their own AI model. It's not necessarily these Microsoft and Apple saying, okay, we're going to compete with OpenAI. It's like we need to feel comfortable that we can work on our own without having to step on your toes and answer to you, because I feel like these AI models will eventually be like your cell phone provider or your internet provider, because we're already seeing where you have to pay for some of the AI services. It's going to be another place that will probably be sued to death by the EU and others, but it will be competitive, and we're going to have to diverge in such a way that Microsoft has theirs, Apple has theirs, etc. So, logical business move, I think.
Yeah, I think it's even more conspiratorial if I did say use a phrase is that Microsoft is trying to position this again, as we mentioned, its AI efforts as a business thing. And currently, OpenAI is known mostly for consumer stuff. Uh, and I say known for, it doesn't mean that it's used for, but known mostly for its issues with security, privacy, things like that in the consumer sense. You know, it's deep fakes and issues with age restrictions and the content it shows and the hallucinations and all that stuff. You can't really pitch that to a business with that many issues. And when we think of OpenAI for the most part because it came on the heels of Microsoft's big hug around it, embracing it for Copilot. That's the two things that people associate. So whenever there's an issue with OpenAI, people are going to say, "Hey, OpenAI and Microsoft, OpenAI and Microsoft." And the more that you continue to do that, the harder it is for Microsoft to say, pitch to businesses. We have our own small language model that is super secure that we've started to train that we're going to sell you to do this specific thing. Instead of saying like, "Hey, aren't you the guys with OpenAI that have all the hallucinations and the Taylor Swift, deep fakes?" So I think they're easing off of that association, not the partnership, because again, we're talking about $12 billion investment. They got to get their money back. But I think the idea that Microsoft and OpenAI are synonymous is going to start to part to your explanation. Microsoft's going to start pushing its own small language models for specific things in business that are tailored to specifically Excel, tailored to Power BI, to its Azure data lakes and all the big data information kind of stuff. That is going to where Microsoft's going to start just using Microsoft AI or whatever they're going to position a Copilot, and less about our partnership with OpenAI. But and to Apple's thing, they didn't really want to be with OpenAI to begin with. We saw the way that they rolled out their Apple Intelligence. It's a latchkey kind of situation where they do most of the small language models and machine learning on their end. And if they have to go to OpenAI, they will tell users like, "Hey, you're leaving the safety and security of our walled garden, and you're going to venture out into the wasteland that is Fallout OpenAI. Just so you know, that is a question that you want answered. You're going to go to the jungle with them." And they've also threatened saying, we're still working with Google to get Google Gemini. We're open to put a Copilot in here. So I think the fact that they didn't want to seat on the board to make it seem like they are finalizing the decision with OpenAI. They're going to keep playing the field. They're not paying for any of this stuff currently, so this is a win-win for them. And not to get tied down with OpenAI is probably the best situation they can come from, because they don't have to work backwards like Microsoft is to distance themselves. They're just saying right off the bat, like, "Hey, I know her, but I don't really know her. So don't put us together in the same room."
Just because we went out for pizza doesn't mean we're dating.
Exactly. Bingo. I will leave it on that. You couldn't have said it any better. We're going to move on to our last section, which is gaming. I'll let you run with our next headline. What do you got for us?
Well, we got a couple of headlines here. I'm gonna hit you up with the Xbox pricing increase first. So it's time to pay the piper in the Microsoft Xbox world. We've got to pay for that $60 billion we spent last year. Sorry, but got to be paid for. I think there are other reasons that we're seeing a little bit of a price increase, but we'll get to that in a minute. Um, Long story short, here's what you got. Everything ranges between a two and $3 increase. The Xbox Game Pass Ultimate is running from 16.99 to 19.99. So that gets you everything. The core Xbox Core, which basically gets you online and into the dashboard with a few game releases, is $9.99 to $11.99. And if you're, I'm sorry, I got there. And if you're doing it by the year, it's going from $59.99 to $74.99. Now, here's where things get a little sketchy. If you were a new member, this has already started. It started July 10th. If you're an existing member, you're going to see these increases starting September 12th. There's also a new tier called Xbox Game Pass Standard that doesn't get you the cloud gaming. It doesn't get you day one releases. It is $14.99 per month. And I get what Microsoft is doing here, but if you want everything, including the cloud gaming, or if you want cloud gaming at all, it is reserved for the Game Pass Ultimate plan. Now, here's my take on it. I think most people are paying for Game Pass Ultimate at this point because, the day one releases, most of us want them. And if you're using cloud gaming, you've got to. Maybe for our younger generation of children who just want to get online and then mom and dad control what's bought and purchased, that's where your other membership come in at. But I have a feeling most people are paying for Game Pass Ultimate to get those day one releases and not have to go out and spend the $59 and $69.99 for their titles. Now, we're paying for the merger. We're paying for Activision and Blizzard. What else are we paying for? Well, we're going to get on that in the next story here, but I think we're going to start seeing, can Microsoft push the envelope of these subscriptions to maybe push cloud gaming and a Netflix type of gaming service on people's plate? And we can talk about that in a minute, but I want to give you a chance to chime in on the Xbox Game Pass subscription increases.
Yeah, when Microsoft first introduced Game Pass, again, they did it with the auspice of saying that it's going to be just like the Netflix of gaming.
Mm-hmm.
And for better or for worse, they've already reached that because they have already implemented price increases almost on par at the same speed that Netflix is doing. And I mean that for the worst. Like Netflix's prices have gone up, I don't know, 3 or 4 times in the last 2 years. And it seems like Game Pass is following suit for better or for worse. And I believe at this point, it's the same blase kind of apathy gamers are having that Netflix users are having. Like, hey, yeah, I have it. It's kind of it's the biggest one out there. Whether or not I'm getting the value for my money, I don't know. I'll keep the subscription and I'll keep looking to see if maybe Paramount or HBO Max or something like that can get my money, or whether or not I can drop Game Pass altogether and just say, hey, you know what? I will pay the $70 for this one game versus being able to have access to a bunch of other games. I think people have reached that point, which goes to what we said a couple of weeks ago, is that Microsoft is burning through a lot of its goodwill. I think if they had kept prices the way it was, in spite of the Activision purchase, a lot of that goodwill would still be there. But I think people are now starting to get a bit of clarity when it comes to Game Pass. And they are now starting to ask the question, do I really need this as the prices go up? And, adding the the day one game stuff is good, but I don't know if it's going to be enough to keep people subscribe to Game Pass, at least in perpetuity. Or I think we're going to start seeing people drop off and come back on when there's a game that they want. The same way people do with Netflix. Hey, I dropped Netflix. I'm just using Disney Plus, and maybe there's a string of Ryan Reynolds movies that come out that I will then re up and get again. I think we're already at that point with Game Pass. Now, if that's going to work in Microsoft's favor, I'm not sure. But I mean, these are all business decisions that as much as I'm a fan and a gamer of myself, I have to look at with clear eyes, saying like again, almost $70 billion was spent on trying to get a game publishing title under them, to try and become the new game publishing king in the space. Now Microsoft's going to have to figure out ways to monetize that to pay for this. They got to go back to investors saying, "Hey, now we have our mobile game app on every platform. We have more subscribers because people are willing to pay more, and we are producing more games that get more eyeballs, that get in front of more advertisers and developers, and it's a whole ecosystem that now is paying for that investment you guys gave us a couple years back." I don't know how well this is going to go over. Like I said, with people who have been subscribing to Game Pass and are now just kind of saying, you know what, you've pushed the envelope a little bit too far for me. Or people were just going to say, you know what, I've been waiting for Call of Duty. I've been waiting to get access to the older Call of Duties. Maybe I missed Modern Warfare, the first one. Maybe I missed Call of Duty 3. Maybe, but now I can go back and play those games now that they're going to be in Game Pass, and it is worth it for me. With that being said, this kind of it looks like you want to say something. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to say a couple things here. I think you hit some nail. You made some very good points there. Um, I was thinking about it this week when I wrote this post, and I actually pulled out my credit card statement and I looked at my Game Pass subscription. There it was, $16.99 plus tax. Okay, just like you just brought up, most people have got a live TV subscription now, whether it be Hulu Live TV, YouTube TV, or whatever. That's, call it $90 a month. Mine's $87 with live TV. Okay, so you've got $87 plus the 16, and then as you mentioned, most of us have got a Netflix stuck in there somewhere, or Peacock TV, or Paramount, or something, or all of those. And I think what we are all guilty of is the time that it takes to cancel that subscription and renew that subscription when we want it. So we look at it and go, well, it's just $16. I didn't use it this month, but I'm going to use it next month. And we give Microsoft that money. We give Netflix that money. So some of this is playing into user habit as well. And I'm going to be honest, as you mentioned, I'm not sure everybody's going to stay because I think everybody's tired of two things. Who you blame here is not what I'm here to talk about. But everything in life is going up to a $3. The subscription burnout. I mean, we just talked about AI. That's another subscription. I paid that subscription yesterday. I think everybody is tired of the subscription life to some degree. And I think you're going to, you know, it's like having a list of customers. You know that customer is a problem, but you don't say anything about it until they make themselves the topic of discussion. So Microsoft is making themselves the topic of discussion by increasing these prices and, as you said, burning out their goodwill. So there's going to be a larger than expected amount of people leave, I think, because the fact that everybody plays Call of Duty, let's be fair, is not true. And you just alienated every one of those people because, in theory, They got nothing new but a price increase. The way it's being presented, they didn't get anything new because they don't play Call of Duty. They didn't get Madden 25 day one added to theirs. They didn't get the new college football game that comes out next week that everybody's been clamoring for. They didn't get that added to their subscription. They didn't get anything but a $3 price increase. And Microsoft still needs to come up with a way like we used to back when things were Xbox Live for me to pay this subscription one time per year. The fact that Game Pass Ultimate can only be bought, I looked last night just to see if they had changed. You can buy the 3-month subscription, the digital card. You cannot pay for a 3-month subscription on your box itself. You have to buy the card. You cannot put these parents in a situation to where, like you said, well, my son's going to want, or my daughter's going to want 4 games this year at $70 a piece. Well, if I pay the Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription one time per year, $150 or whatever Microsoft decides it needs to be, it makes it look less obvious. They're more apt to keep that subscriber. So that's something very simple Microsoft could do. Offer a yearly plan like they used to and let us pay it one time. I know I would feel better about that because there's some, we all have ebbs and flows in our financials. Sometimes it's nice to know that Netflix subscription is paid for the year. The Peacock subscription is paid for the year. That would help.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Which kind of leads us into our next and last topic, which is Xbox Cloud Gaming is now available on Amazon's Fire TV. And for those of you scratching your head saying, how do those two relate? Well, we're seeing this as Microsoft's next step in validating its purchase of Activision Blizzard, as well as moving beyond the console. They are fully going to be going into game publisher mode versus console creator / fighter in the industry. Now, again, I'm not saying that they are going to come out with another console, maybe even a handheld or make more hardware. But the idea that they found a middle ground with Amazon, which is one of their fiercest cloud competitors, to basically run two businesses together in a position and in a way that benefits the customer financially more so, I think is probably one of the biggest or most underrated headlines of the last couple months for either company. So I know we have Prime Day coming up next week or something like that. For those of you who buy TVs in general, you probably get a Fire Stick involved. The idea that you'll now be able to play Xbox games for under $50, sans the price of the controller, is amazing. People no longer need to go buy the $400 or $500 consoles. Now, again, these are going to be streamed, so this is still a privileged position to be in. You have to have enough bandwidth. You need to be in an area that has broadband enough for you to play these games. But it is a huge step. What are your thoughts on Xbox Cloud Gaming coming to the Fire TV?
When I first read it, I scratched my head just as you mentioned, and I scratched it pretty hard. Then once I thought about it, I said, no, this makes sense. Because what we're all forgetting is our good friend Panos Panay that used to almost, he had a title, but he was the spokesman for Microsoft. I'm going to call it what it is. The guy could present anything. He could make anything sound interesting. He did a very good job, and he was well respected by the audience, myself included, and I know you as well, for his abilities, and he's over there at Amazon. He still has contact. It does not surprise me that Amazon was chosen on that level to be the pilot, the first that we've heard of to offer this type of service. The other thing is everybody shops at Amazon. We all buy something from the Zon. That's what my little niece says. It's 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 the Zon truck, Uncle Dave. It's the Zon truck. So I think this is a good move, and I think what Microsoft is doing here, I think the Game Pass increase plays into that pricing increase we just discussed. Because Microsoft's goal, whether we love it or hate it, I think, as we've always mentioned, is to stop making, mine's right here, to stop making that little box that sits on your desk. They want it to be, Phil Spencer's term is play everywhere, I believe. And he wants us to be able to play everywhere. Well, part of being able to play everywhere is you've got the software on a Fire Stick. You've got the software maybe eventually on a Chrome, the Chromecast. Maybe eventually.
Or just built into smart TVs, yeah.
Yeah. It's already built into some Samsung TVs. Now, it is the higher end models. I did look into that. If you're into the higher end model Samsung TVs, you can pick that up. But I think this is the Microsoft way of saying, okay, how many people are playing on a Fire Stick? We increased the Xbox Game Pass, the subscription cost. Could we bump that price one more time, maybe even two more times, and continue to build on that Netflix-like ecosystem and get the EAs of the world to come in and say, yes, put our games on Game Pass day one. We do get the EA games, such as Madden, but we get them at the tail end of the season when the sales are pretty much done. So it's a play to get rid of the hardware, I think, or at least get away from Microsoft producing that hardware. Maybe they, factor it out to Dell, Alienware, HP, Digital Storm, maybe those type of companies to produce the hardware. But I think this is the first real move. It's on the Fire Stick. They're watching those Fire Stick sales like hawks and going, okay, Amazon, you sold 1 million Fire Sticks. How many players did we have on a Fire Stick yesterday? Did we have 1 million players? 500,000? 250,000? They're watching, and I think this is the pilot program to get rid of the Xbox. Not tomorrow, not this year, not next year, in the next 5 years.
I agree with you. I'm going to end with saying that aside from the Steven Elop shuffle that they just did, the one that you were referring to with, moving a plant from Microsoft, that being Panos this time around, over to a competing company, and then, I don't know if it's going to be able to sync that Amazon ship. That's a pretty big one. Steven Elop didn't have his hands that full with the Nokia, but I think this is, these are business decisions that are made decades long in the process. I don't know if Panos had that much say in it, but if he did, it's great. And I think this again extends beyond just the Fire Stick going out on Prime Day or even this next year, because if you were to get these price increases, and I think you and I talked about this off mic, where you get an Xbox Game Pass subscription that goes up about $30, it's high. There will be drop off, but in exchange, what you get is you get happy developers, because you're now taking a portion of that and paying them off. You're also going to get happy partners like Amazon, where they can start to say on Prime Day, get a Fire Stick for free in 3 months of Game Pass. You're subsidizing that 3 month that Amazon's going to sell this piece of hardware for, at a loss, and you're going to be at a loss for 3 months to gain that person over 10 years. When they say, hey, you know what, I got a Fire Stick when I bought my Samsung TV during the Super Bowl. I'm not that huge of a gamer, but it said I have 3 months to try and play Madden on this thing. You know what? I actually enjoyed it. I had the controller. I played Madden, right during the Super Bowl, right after the Super Bowl. You know what? I'm going to sign up and I'm going to keep this thing going. I don't need to get another Fire Stick. I don't need to get another TV. I don't need to get another controller. But I will continue paying the companies, Amazon, Microsoft, through its division of Activision. I will keep paying these people in order to play this thing. And that's how you get them. And you do all that by subsidizing. So you increase the price of the subscription, knowing that this is where we're going to take a hit in order to gain that person back. Versus, when they were a smaller business, when it was just Microsoft selling just Game Pass by itself on its own console, it had to keep it low in order to get adoption, in order to get people on it. Now they're saying, if we have to raise the prices, it's because we need to think beyond just ourselves. We need to start paying out before we start getting in. And this is how they're going to do it. Unfortunately, they're going to do it off our backs, off our dollars. If you choose to say, I'm not saying that nobody has to be loyal to any of these businesses. These are businesses. These are people that are making decisions to benefit themselves. But if you are going to be a gamer and you are someone who enjoys the the gallery of games from Activision Blizzard, from Microsoft, then this is what this is, be fully aware this is what you're paying for. The expansion of Xbox into other platforms, into other mediums in order to play. We're going to start probably seeing, ideally, if this works out, Chromecast that will get it, Roku sticks that will get it. Like we said, on TVs, not just Samsung, but maybe LG and everyone else in between. And this is where they fully become Netflix, because you can basically get Netflix on anything. You get Netflix on a refrigerator. So I assume that you'll be able to get Game Pass on a refrigerator in the next 10 years. With that being said, unless you got one more thing to say.
Not really, other than, listening to you talk about it, really, it makes you think that, like you said, those of us with broadband are privileged to be able to access these services. Now, I pay a hefty fee, a very hefty fee, for the broadband out here in rural America. But, Starlink and those companies are getting bigger every day. You can look how quickly Starlink went from an order only to now you can go buy Starlink today at Best Buy,
Yeah.
and you can buy all the accessories with it. And I know we get distracted by some of the bigger things with the mergers and the EU and all the legal things that impact businesses. And sometimes we forget how the consumer plays into that. But I think it all in the end fits together because we've got these Snapdragon, and I'm going to end here. We've got these Snapdragon units out there that are efficient, they're powerful. Microsoft has said the 5G version is coming. Lenovo has said the 5G versions are coming. It's all a play for the consumer in the end. It's going to be a matter of how much or how little is that consumer willing to spend. Because for a lot of us, everybody seems to be a digital creator on some level, whether it be TikTok, YouTube videos, podcasts, art. Everybody these days seems to be creating something. And everybody's schedules is jam packed if you include what a lot of us do on the side. I think that will be the next hurdle we face as consumers. Time to make these subscriptions worthwhile. Is playing your favorite game once a week enough to make you pay for that subscription? Is watching something on Netflix on Saturday night or Friday night with your spouse or whoever enough to warrant that subscription? I think that's where we're going next. We've got all these subscriptions. We're doing it for the consumer, but there's only 24 hours in a day. And I think people are going to start choosing what to do in their 24 hours. And I think that's where Microsoft has to be careful to make sure that they stay with the core audience. Kids are going to play it every day. They're going to come home from school, jump on that Xbox, just like it used to be with us. Parents had to come in 10 minutes, go to bed, turning it off, unplugging it, taking it outside, get away from it, go to bed, do schoolwork. We had that. But the adults that they need to pay these bills need to be able to make that decision that the Xbox subscription, the Copilot subscription, the cloud subscription is worthwhile. I think that's where we end up next. Is
I agree.
got to be able
Uh,
to choose what's worthwhile.
Yeah, and I just want to end with a few details on this exact topic in case you're interested in jumping out and taking advantage of this. Microsoft said that it is making Amazon and Microsoft are making the Game Pass Ultimate available in 25 countries. I don't know exactly which 25, but if you're in North America, consider it a done deal. But I would assume Europe, some of the bigger countries, Japan, things like that, or at least the initial batch of countries that will have access to this. To get started, you need Game Pass Ultimate, so you just can't do the basic ones that we were just talking about. And a compatible Amazon Fire device, that's usually the Fire TV Stick 4K Max. So you can't, if you already have a current one or an old one from like 6-7 years ago, go get a new one. It retails for $59.99, which is, again, it's expensive. Don't get me wrong; it's still $60 in a very inflated economy. But it is much cheaper than the minimum. I think it's 250, 300, or 275 for an Xbox Series S or whatever. So it's much cheaper than that. And you will need the Fire Stick 4K. I believe the 4K Max is $59.99. You can also do the 4K from 2023, last year's model, $49.99. So save yourself about $10 or so. And a Bluetooth capable Xbox or PlayStation wireless controller. Which is great because you can play with either. So if you already have a PlayStation, great. If you don't, go out and buy one of the controllers. You can get them at Target for about, I think it's $50-$60. So again, for $100, all taxes included, the highest price, higher tier ones, you can get yourself a pretty portable gaming experience, because again, these can move from TV to TV versus trying to trudge the control device from room to room. Then you download the newly available Xbox apps on the Fire TV device, sign in with your Microsoft account, which you will need one if you haven't gotten one. So go do that. You can do that while you're probably switching over to your new Outlook app or whatever. And then pair the wireless controller to the Fire TV device. In addition, Amazon and Microsoft are making the game Fortnite available free to Fire TV people who want to take advantage of this. Again, Fortnite is already free, so I don't know what they mean by that, but maybe there's some skins and some DLCs that they'll also bundle with this. So that being said, we want you to go out and try it out if you want to this weekend. Let us know your feedback. Where can people reach you if they want to tell you about how this deal is going?
I want to hear how this goes for people. I'm interested to see, what the experience is, because there's Wi-Fi playing into it, there's internet connections playing in, there's loads on the servers playing in, because I'm sure Fire Sticks are going to be hot. David PAJ 1978, that is on X/Twitter/Threads. Jump over there, say hello. I enjoy, talking to you folks. Some of you have DM'd me on Twitter, and that's perfectly fine. I'm more than happy to have the conversation. Hit me up. Let me know your experiences. Hey, maybe if we play something similar, we can catch a game.
Yeah, you can also reach me at Mindhead1 on Twitter. You can find me at Kareem Anderson on Threads and Instagram. If you want to catch me out in the streets playing, what am I playing these days? I'm still playing Power World. I'm playing Sea of Thieves. I'm playing. I was playing Fallout 76 for a little bit. I got attacked by a dragon, and I haven't picked it up since. So, but if you are willing to go battle dragons or zombie dragons, wherever that thing was, with me, I will see you there. Again, enjoy your weekend. We hope that you will walk away more informed, and will come see us next week for another pod. In between that time, visit the site Microsoft Unboxed to read any stories. Keep you guys updated on things that we may or may not even cover in the podcast. You can keep yourself abreast on all the information that is in the Microsoft world and its tangential partners and competitors. If you're still here, get out of here. We'll see you guys later. Bye.
Have a good weekend, folks.